good afternoon, everyone. If you are here in Portugal, like I am, good evening. If you are in Los Angeles or in California, it's good morning. And we are so happy to have everyone joining us for this United Nations Ocean Conference side event, leveraging the blue economy solutions for a sustainable goods movement ecosystem. That's a very long title, but what we are so focused on doing in Los Angeles is really rethinking what a sustainable port of the future looks like. What are the pieces in terms of the human side, port and goods movement, efficiencies, the role of new technology and innovation, and how that all comes together to rethink for the next generation. I am so thrilled to have a great panel and colleagues from, actually from an initiative we've all been participating, which is a Build Back Better grant initiative to really realize some of the work that will be explained today. So I have with me Ina Braverman, co-founder and CEO of EcoWave Power, Mike Galvin, Director of Waterfront and Commercial Real Estate from the Port of Los Angeles. Gail Woodward will be joining us momentarily, who's a principal investigator with NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory. Stephen Chung, Chief Operating Officer of the Los Angeles County Economic Development Corporation. Terry Tamminen will be joining us momentarily, the CEO of AltaSea at the Port of Los Angeles. And I'm Ann Carpenter, founder and CEO of Braid Theory. Our company runs accelerator programs for engineering and science-led entrepreneurs. We are a partner of AltaSea, and we really focus on supporting solutions in the blue economy. I'll be your moderator today and really like to have it kicked off with Stephen Chung, who will actually give us a nice overview of this program that we're all working on to help set the stage. So Stephen, I'm going to stop the share and have you go ahead and start sharing.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Anne, and bom dia to everybody in Portugal, and hello to the rest of the world. Again, my name is Stephen Chung. I serve not only as Chief Operating Officer for the Los Angeles County Economic Development Corporation, but I'm also the president of the World Trade Center Los Angeles, which we'll talk about a little bit later with the international side. And lastly, most recently, because as Anne was mentioning, the Build Back Better Regional Challenge, we have to select a regional economic competitive officer, so I serve that role as well. A bit of background about this grant. The U.S. government, federal government from the Economic Development Administration has issued a $1 billion challenge to the nation, asking each of the regions to submit an application that will revitalize their economy by building specific industries or revitalizing specific industries as a way to recuperate from the devastation of COVID-19 and to build an economy of tomorrow. So the Los Angeles region came together and put together something called a Good for GME project, which I'll talk a bit about a bit later. And there were over 500, and actually there are exactly 529 applicants from around the US that submitted, and there were 60 finalists that were selected as a part of this process to be invited to compete for a second phase, where we can be apply for tens of millions of dollars to basically bring those dollars back to the local region to help us basically develop this entire strategic plan to implement the plan. And so I'm going to go into more specifics about this particular proposal that the Los Angeles region has put together, which we think is going to be very exciting. And with that, if you don't mind, I will share my screen.
Good.
Excellent. And if you can give me a thumbs up if you can see the screen, that would be great.
All good.
Great. So global commerce is critical to American prosperity, and optimizing our supply chain for equitable growth, sustainability, and resilience is critical to the nation's economic recovery. You see, the San Pedro Bay complex in Los Angeles County is America's leading gateway to the fastest growing economies of the Pacific Rim. More than 40% of cargo, waterborne cargo particularly. Let me change my slide really quickly here. There we go. More than 40% of the waterborne cargo coming into the United States arrive through our Long Beach and LA port complex. And as the largest engine of job creation in Southern California, it provides economic benefit to every state in the nation. Goods moving through the Port of Los Angeles and Long Beach originate in or are destined for every single congressional district in the US. And yet, even with these great regional assets, Los Angeles County experienced historic economic devastation due to COVID-19, when our economy lost over 772,000 jobs within the first 2 months of pandemic. I'm going to say that again. In just 2 months, we lost 772,000 jobs. So this region is really still reeling from the effect of COVID. And 2 years into it, Los Angeles County's unemployment rate still remains high at over 5.2%, and over 260,000 residents of LA County are still unemployed as of May of 2022. So further investment in economic recovery is needed to accelerate equitable growth and build resiliency within our regional economy. And we believe that the largest opportunity to expedite an equitable recovery has to tap into an industry capable of creating and supporting tens of thousands of good jobs throughout the Los Angeles region, as well as throughout the nation. And the reason why we chose this particular industry, the goods movement industry, is because one in 48 jobs throughout the United States is associated in some way with cargo moving through this vital gateway, with almost 500,000 jobs in the closest 5 county alone. Therefore, investing in the Los Angeles goods movement ecosystem will have reverberating impact on the rest of the nation. Goods movement as a cluster ecosystem is comprised of multiple industry sectors that produce and move essential goods across the US and in our region. Also includes a green and blue economies that are anticipated to grow over time to support hundreds of thousands of jobs for diverse communities while delivering powerful environmental benefits and improving US competitiveness. Now, the Build Back Better Regional Challenge helped us bring together an influential coalition representing the diverse communities of Los Angeles, and we established a proposal aimed to drive innovation for efficiency, sustainability, equity in the goods movement ecosystem in Los Angeles County. To achieve this really ambitious goal, the coalition established this project called the Goods for GME Project. It's a comprehensive package of projects to stimulate the growth of the GME by one, completing the AltaSea Center for Innovation at the Port of Los Angeles that will serve as a foundation for the blue economy in Los Angeles. Two, installing a green hydrogen fueling station and an electric battery charging station for heavy-duty trucks at the Port of Los Angeles to help transition port dray trucking operations to zero emission by 2035. The Blue and Green projects I just mentioned will help support workforce training programs and also to help serve underserved communities access living wage jobs in the goods movement ecosystem. And on top of that, we're also supporting entrepreneurship and commercialization programs to build upon the blue and green innovations. So while the ports have provided a large supply of well-paying jobs throughout the entire region, industrial activities that are associated with goods movement has led to blighted economic conditions and some environmental concerns in the surrounding communities as well. This is the target population we're trying to serve. The demographics of the port area residents served by the Los Angeles Coalition are largely people of color. They're some of the most vulnerable and historically disinvested communities in the Los Angeles area with high rates of poverty. So rather than building back the inequitable elements of pre-pandemic economy, we need to build back our region better and ensure that all populations, especially our BIPOC and women residents, have equitable access to well-paying jobs and entrepreneurship opportunities within this new economy. So within the goods for GME projects, we anticipate having significant impact on the local and regional economy by supporting over 1,000 direct and indirect new jobs, approximately 4,000 construction jobs, establishing and accelerating the growth of 300 new businesses and engaging an additional 300 local diverse businesses in entrepreneurship development opportunities, ensuring more than 1,000 individuals from underrepresented communities are trained as a skilled workforce with a goal of placing more than 300 participants into sustainable living wage jobs. Also, we plan to renovate the AltaSea Center for Innovation that we'll talk about a bit later, designed to serve as an economic driver for the entire region and the nation as well. And finally, we want to construct publicly accessible infrastructure for early adopters of zero emission goods movement vehicles. So let me stop this share right now. The long-term impact of building out this ecosystem will really help our region build a more economic diversity and resiliency by accelerating the reduction of our dependency on petroleum-based fuels and also increase the resiliency, sustainability, and competitiveness of the nation's goods movement and supply chain ecosystem. This project was to accelerate the timeline for economic recovery, the closure of long-standing gaps in equity, and help our region become a national and global model for equitable, sustainable transformation of goods movements. That's a quick summary of our entire project. I have to say, about 2 weeks ago, we were invited to Washington, D.C. and meet with some of the other 59 finalists, and I saw some great projects. But this project in particular really resonated with a lot of our other regions as well that looked at this particular proposal and were very inspired about how we can bring multiple sectors together to really stimulate the transformation of our existing green economy, build out a brand new blue economy, combine together to really transform our existing goods movement ecosystem that will have long-lasting impact. Again, it's not just our region, because Los Angeles serves as a gateway for international trade. And I think over the last 2 years, we've seen what infrastructure and potential congestion issues can do not only to our supply chain here locally, but nationally and even globally. So I think a lot of our partners are very excited about what we're going to be able to do. Specifically, when it comes to the blue or ocean economy, there's so much potential there. And I think relating to this conference, I think a lot of folks see the impact it's going to have, again, not only for the Los Angeles region, but the technology, the innovation can really help shape the future of this entire one West Coast and eventually to the rest of the nation, the rest of the world. So, and we'd be happy to continue to discuss more later on.
And just, some of the conversations that I've been having here in Portugal, one of the things that I've gotten into some wonderful conversations with those that are involved in port communities around the world is this understanding that the burden of ports and port communities is high, and to really think about how do you reframe in terms, there's a lot of conversations about, cleaner oceans, the effects of climate change and so on and so forth. But this really also speaks to the human aspect, which is so strong. And when you look at the Sustainable Development Goals and the rules for completely, equitable solutions. And so this ability to have this, the technology to drive a cleaner future, but involving and bringing in the communities and the local to also be able to participate in the economic gain and a better financial future is such a strong, just a strong approach to moving forward, because it really dispels that myth that if you improve on the environmental side and the technology side, it costs too much, you lose something else. This is really that true rising tide for all.
Well, we'll just close with this. We've been saying that the adage "rising tide lifts all boats" it's applicable sometimes, but I think we have to correct it a little bit during the last 2 years. Rising tide lifts all boats if you have a boat. If you don't have a boat, you may drown. And so I think right now this is a very important time for us to make sure that other people have boats, that they're life preservers and lifesavers that are out there to make sure that everybody can survive, and eventually everybody will have a boat so that they can actually all live together. And this is why it's so exciting right now, especially here in the United States, where the federal government, the state government, and the local government and the private sectors are all aligned with that equitable solution. I think Mike will talk about it a bit later, but the Port of Los Angeles has been demonstrating their commitment to the local community in terms of how do you grow the ports, but grow it more sustainably, at the same time benefiting the local community. I think this is a national model and a global model that needs to be looked at.
And it definitely is a global model, because another discussion that is permeating throughout all the conversations is if you provide solutions to a highly developed, wealthy nation, and it doesn't work for a small island nation with very limited resources, then you're not solving the problem. And what we see in Los Angeles is our own sort of microcosm of all the different striations in the economic the running the whole gamut. So we need to really look across that, just as the conversation here is looking across the globe and making sure of equity. of- and prosperity opportunities for all. So I see two AltaSea things. Terry, are you on as well and ready to go, or shall we move forward with Mike Galvin to really give a little bit more details about the port's role in all of this? Okay, Mike, why don't you go ahead?
Thank you, Anne. Let me just share my screen here. Okay, whoops. Let's go to the top. So thank you very much for having the port here today to be able to, let me, there, that's good. For allowing the port to present. I think Stephen hit the the nail on the head in regards to why this is so important to the Port of Los Angeles. It really, this project that we've been working on with local constituents here all around the region, it really embodies what the port wants to be and has been moving towards in the last 2 decades, both in the green side of the economy and really changing the way that we deal with cargo movement and making sure that we are setting precedent environmentally on how we are addressing the consequences of goods movement, not only on our local communities, but on the arteries that go out from our port and into the inland areas and continue to carry that carbon footprint from the ports further. On top of that, it's also extremely important that we work with our local communities to provide other amenities and other types of economic activity that we haven't normally looked at. And that's where AltaSea comes in and really softening up our adjacency with the port, providing a thought leader and a job center on the Port of Los Angeles property as an adjacent use in between the heavy cargo activity within the port and the communities that are adjacent to the port. So I'm going to go through and give a little bit of a background on the port. Stephen hit some of these issues as well, but I'll hit in a little bit of detail and then talk through the port's plans for greening our supply chain, for creating a better adjacency for our communities, and for then advancing the blue economy. And I think Stephen was very on point with saying that at this point, we need to be extremely deliberate in what we're doing. We've had these programs in place, but being deliberate, going after federal, state, local funding, and creating these partnerships to really push this forward, to create these benefits for our local communities, both in the environment and through jobs and economic development, are extremely important. So just a little bit of background. Port of LA is part of the San Pedro Bay Port Complex here in the Los Angeles region, serves as really one gateway for the world, the largest gateway within the Western Hemisphere, and the Port of Los Angeles serves the primary role there as the largest port in the Western Hemisphere based on container volume. A little bit of background on the port: founded over 100 years ago in 1907. We operate as a trustee of the state of California. So we do everything for the benefit of the state and the nation. We're not taxpayer supported. We derive our revenue from real estate development and leases that we have that move cargo, that provide all kinds of other recreational amenities as well, including hospitality, food and beverage, marinas, open space, etc. We're managed by a 5-member volunteer board that is appointed by the mayor of Los Angeles on over 7,500 acres of port property that includes land and water, about 43 miles of waterfront, 270 berths and 25 cargo terminals, and 116 miles of rail tracks. So the port is a large piece of infrastructure that supports the regional economics as well as the nation's goods movement needs. In 2021, we hit a record year, 10.7 million TEUs, and that was following several very, very strong years, even coming through the pandemic as well. So we have had to, through the pandemic, deal with disruptions in the supply chain and finding ways to continue to make sure that it is resilient by working with all of our partners in labor, which is extremely important as we transition to the next step of really decarbonizing the port, making sure that that transition is just, not just for the communities around us, but also for the support labor that we have that make the port work on a daily basis. The port is global in nature, obviously, supported by this very large economic region, 22 million consumers here in the 5-county area, 15,000 longshore workforce, very large distribution center that's almost 2 billion square feet that spans from the port all the way out to the Inland Empire and beyond. 100 trains leaving daily from the LA Basin based on the very significant rail infrastructure that the port has built on dock at all of our terminals, as well as extending to the Alameda corridor out through the, the local region. Union Pacific and BNSF both call at the port and help to assist with moving that rail traffic out to other areas and really creating the best timing to get from Asia to any point in the United States by way of water, plus train moves out of the port and access to all major freight hubs: Chicago, Memphis, San Antonio, Kansas City, New York, Atlanta, Houston, Denver, and Dallas. So the economic...
Wait, Mike, what I wanted to just say for those that don't really get the enormity of this, let me explain. A TEU is a 20-foot equivalent container unit, which has been kind of a standard measure of how you measure the quantity of goods coming through. So 10.7 million shipping containers coming through, even though they're now more closer 40 or higher. But think about that in relation, hitting record volume coming through the ports during COVID, during this time of trying to also go through this transition to the greening of port, is a very heavy lift. And there was a question about what a TEU is. So I didn't want to interrupt, but I wanted to just pin how massive the problem and what you're really dealing with in terms of the volume and the operations while transitioning. That is not it just deserved an extra moment.
No, yeah, thank you, Ann. We're going to get into that. It's critical in what the port does that we continue to grow, but not at the detriment of our local communities relating to the environment, and that we are setting the pace around the world for how we deal with environmental issues. And I will get into that because that is essential for our ability to continue to operate here, on top of needing to offer more to the local communities beyond the goods movement business that we have, and advanced opportunities in the blue economy as well. So just a little bit of recap of some of this stuff Stephen hit on as well. So, you know, jobs are a big issue here at the port. Almost 900 jobs from the port itself, 15,000 longshore jobs, 170 plus thousand jobs in the Long Beach and Los Angeles area, 912,000 jobs in the 5-county region. So we always say 1 in 9 jobs in the 5-county regions associated with the ports, which is a huge economic push for the entire region to make sure that things continue to move, and that everybody in the region that relies on imports and exports gets what they need out of the ports, and that the ports are continuing to be resilient but responsible as we continue to develop. 2.6 million jobs across the US. We hit every congressional district through the United States, and very significant $307 billion of trade moving through to the United States. So a very significant economic driver here at the Port of Los Angeles that historically operated without restriction in regards to the environment until we got into the 2000s. And it was really essential for us to continue to operate our business. We needed to be more responsible in how we dealt with the environment. And we came up with our first Clean Air Action Plan in partnership with the Port of Long Beach. 2007 was the first version of that. We're now in the third version of that in 2017, with the focus on reducing emissions in critical areas that the port has operationally: ocean-going vessels, heavy-duty trucks, terminal equipment, through technology development. That's why we look at the Clean Air Action Plan every 5 years or so to look what technology has advanced during that period of time. How can we push this further? How can we get to zero emissions, which is where we are today, and really taking that last push to get all the carbon out of the goods movement industry here at the ports and around the world at ports, as we set precedent here. Very important as we do all this to improve efficiency as well. So as Ann mentioned, there's a lot of moving parts that we have to be hitting at the same time to make this all work, not to mention the community development part that I'll get into as well. So in the 2017 Clean Air Action Plan, really the critical focus in the initial years is getting at zero emissions on our terminals and off our terminals with on-road trucks. So by 2035, all trucks calling at the port need to be zero emissions. So we're looking at multiple pathways, both battery electric and hydrogen, seeming to play a much larger role in the last year or so as advancement has come there, as other federal funding opportunities have come there to build the hydrogen hub here in Southern California, that the port is focused on leading as well, to make sure that we have the opportunity to maintain resiliency as the trucking community suffered in our first transition to clean trucks back in 2007. We want to make sure that we don't have the same type of job dislocation that we had at that time. And so it's going to be extremely important that we provide the fueling sources that are resilient, that are economic drivers, meaning that we can find a fuel source that is actually economically more viable than diesel. That would be great to drive the economy, and making sure the equipment is there at a reasonable price, or that it is subsidized in some way through our clean truck program to enable drivers and small companies to transition. And as Stephen said, so those folks without boats aren't left behind. So those folks without a big balance sheet aren't left behind, so that this works for everybody. And we continue to have the robust alignment of large scale and small scale trucking operations here at the port that makes the port so strong and diversified. Transition to zero emissions terminal equipment is even closer to us in 2030. So we're working hard with a variety of partners to make sure that happens in time, to make sure that there are adequate products that are commercialized by that period of time, and to make sure that the transition for the longshore labor allows them continue ability to make the port resilient and to continue to be able to handle the amount of goods and more goods, looking at operations that are similar to what we have today. And that's where hydrogen really plays a big role in the future of cargo handling equipment, because it fuels the same, it operates generally the same from the demonstrations we've done, and we see huge opportunities to build that hydrogen market and getting to a zero emissions port very soon here in the future. We're also developing a green shipping corridor with the Port of Shanghai as the first step to put one zero emissions vessel into that corridor trade lane by 2030. So that's a lot of work going into that. And then also harbor craft and rail, huge opportunities also to proliferate the hydrogen market there in those very heavy duty cycle type of operations. So these are the core areas the port is looking at to push towards zero emissions. In the 2017 plan, really focused on on-road trucks and cargo handling equipment first with those hard deadlines, and then continue to develop technology that will get to the other emission sources that I mentioned. Current relationships that we have working with our existing customer base and working with new entries that have been really focused on developing hydrogen in the marketplace, including Toyota and Kenworth. Toyota has really been out in front as a partner with the Port of Los Angeles to build power plants for on-road trucks, to build power plants for cargo handling equipment, and we can't do this without those partnerships. So these commercial entities have been extremely helpful in allowing us to push the market to where we have today. And the overall goal and result of this is really getting at these key particulate matter and other constituent matter issues, and making sure that we are continuing to push on each one of these, getting NOx, SOx, diesel particulate matter down, and we are achieving our goals across the board as we continue to push new technology and push industry to clean up operations here in the port. But this last step is the most critical step to get to zero emissions, and that is really the most difficult thing that we have in front of us in trying to bridge that gap and get commercialization of products that are at a reasonable rate with fuel that is at a reasonable rate to make that last step to really take all the carbon out of the air from port emissions. And we did all this while continuing to grow our business 25% between 2005 and 2020. Jumping into a totally different part of the business that is extremely important for our communities though, and being a well-rounded port, is our public access investment plan and our dedication to the LA waterfront and building out a better adjacency for the local community support. Between 2005 and 2025, we'll have invested $1 billion in public access, which is basically creating better connectivity along the adjacencies to our local communities to create this buffer between the port cargo operations and the communities that live adjacent to them. This is going to create more economic viability for our local communities as we clean the water, clean the air, make these communities more supportable for people to live, work, and play there. We're going to be creating amenities to make it even more available for the communities, the region, statewide and nationwide, and international tourists that come down and really enjoy watching the port activity in a very, very amenitized environment. The LA waterfront spans both Wilmington and San Pedro communities in the Port of Los Angeles, and we are vying to equitably invest in both of our communities to make sure that both communities have the same opportunities at economic development as we develop out these public access areas. In the Wilmington area, there's significant development going on as we speak to build out over $150 million worth of park space that will revitalize an industrial area that has been left behind because of port operations and a barrier that had been created between the community and the port. Now we will look to activate this as we clean the water, clean the air, make it more available to people to recreate in the water, make it more available for other developments to occur behind the port, and commercialize the zone in and around where we'll be building more and more open space. San Pedro District, the same idea. Master planning went on with both of these project areas back in 2009. And we are working towards developing these areas, spending that $1 billion to make it all happen. AltaSea is at the center of all of that. So there is recreation involved in this, there is open space, there is significant food and beverage and hospitality development. Those are all great things, but the high quality jobs that we need to really be visionary on in the Port of Los Angeles come from developments like AltaSea, which will really look to unlock the ocean's value and allow the port to provide access to potential industries that are coming out of AltaSea in development, going towards commercialization. And Terry will speak a lot more about this, but that is a central part. The port is a public-private partnership with AltaSea, has been developing this project over the course of the last 10 years, investing significant time and resources to make sure that this nonprofit has everything they need to really unlock all the value that we have in the land and the assets that we've been given, to make sure we're being as much as we can to our entire community, our region, and beyond. Really setting that standard for what ports can be worldwide, getting past the goods movement, getting past just the burdens that that's created environmentally on and economically on these local communities, and starting to really give back very deliberately to these local communities. So I'm going to let Terry take it from there, but really excited to be here and get involved in a panel discussion afterwards.
And when I am listening to you go through everything, of course, all of us on this panel have been involved with the port for some time, and as a partner in AltaSea. And I'm listening to the speed of what you're trying to speak, because there's so much going on that the port has transitioned already so much over the years. And with tying in with the Clean Air Action Plan, that it is virtually impossible to put everything in this short period, but you've done an amazing job to really get a strong overview. And we do have to hope to dive into a few of those discussions a little bit. There are so many interesting points. For those of you that have questions, and they're starting to come in, we will have some questions that we will bring to I will bring to all the panelists, but I will also try to incorporate your questions in our discussion after all the panelists speak. So now, Terry Tamminen, CEO of AltaSea, I'd like to welcome you. Well, I wish you were here in Portugal, but glad I'm waving the flag here and happy to support our partnership with AltaSea here in Portugal at the UN Oceans Conference. So Terry, please take the stage.
Well, thanks, Ann, and thanks to all of you. And I apologize for being late. Technical difficulties. No matter what I tried, I just couldn't get into the Zoom. So fortunately, Dorothy brought over her entire computer so I could just get going here. So I apologize if I repeat anything that's already been said. And Ann, it doesn't look like you're in Lisbon. It looks like you're right there at AltaSea. So, well,
the hotel room, there's the Portuguese pavilion, kind of where the side events are going on, is beautiful, looking out right over the aquarium and the river harbor, not the ocean. But it's amazing and beautiful. But the wind comes up so strong in the afternoon here in Lisbon that I couldn't very well run this conference event from live on site.
Well, thanks so much for organizing, and all to my distinguished panelists. Now, I think somebody may have control of the slides. Hopefully, again, with technical challenges here, I unfortunately do not because I'm not on my computer. So if anyone does, please put them up. Otherwise, I'll just wing it and explain what AltaSea is all about. And I think Mike may have already done some of that. But I'm not seeing any slides, so I'll just explain.
So you're just going to be explaining it, and so head right on.
Sure. So, and again, apologies if I'm repeating something you've already heard, but AltaSea in the Port of Los Angeles is a nonprofit that is working with the port and many other stakeholders to renovate a 35-acre campus here in the port. You saw the map where Mike was just showing where it's located, right at the mouth of the port, right on the main channel where most of the ships come right past us, including cruise ships with thousands of people every day that will see what's going on here. And we have 100-year-old historic warehouses on site that we are in the process of renovating into a modern blue economy center for research, development, education, and workforce development. And so what do I mean by that? Well, the blue economy, at least the way that we focus on it here at AltaSea, where we're trying to combine the education, the science, and the business into one holistic approach. We focus on regenerative aquaculture, and that means both on land and sea, seafood and things like kelp, growing kelp sustainably, which can contribute to food security around the world, not just directly feeding humans, but replacing things like soy in cattle and other kinds of animal feed. So feeding us indirectly. And I think many people may know that kelp and other seaweeds mixed into cattle feed has not only been more sustainable than some land-based crops, but reduces methane, which is really important for climate change issues. So food and fuel, even pharmaceuticals and industrial materials coming out of seaweed and the ocean. So we're very excited about the regenerative aquaculture. And by that, I really mean the things that add more to the ocean than take away. And of course, as humans, we've done a lot of strip mining of the ocean in terms of most of the fishable species and so forth. And yet we know that since 2/3 of the planet is covered by ocean, that we will be increasingly relying on it for our food, our water, and really our very existence, of course, oxygen and so many other ecosystem services. The second area we focus on is renewable energy. And I don't know if we've heard from EcoWave yet from Ina, but looking forward to working with her and other renewable energy from the ocean sources of technology and ways to harness the ocean for renewables. And that also includes things like carbon capture and sequestration, removing carbon from the ocean. Many people may not know that about 1/3 of the excess CO2 that we've pumped up into the atmosphere has been absorbed by the ocean. Otherwise, the concentration in the atmosphere would be much greater, and we'd already be well past the tipping points that we're trying to avoid. We'd be well past the 1.5 degrees or even 2 degrees at this point. But the ocean is running out of its absorptive capacity. So if we can take some of that acid and carbon out of the ocean, then we increase its absorptive capacity to at least buy us more time. Not that we want to keep dumping into the ocean, but as I said, at least to buy us more time. And hydrogen. So for example, at AltaSea, we're on our 180,000 square foot roof that we just replaced. We're about to install 2 megawatts of solar, which is enough to power 700 homes. So that's more than we'll use on site. We'd like to use some of that excess renewable energy to electrolyze seawater or wastewater and break out the hydrogen, which can, so a green source of hydrogen, which can then be used to power the goods movement ecosystem, which is very hard to otherwise electrify. You can't do it all with batteries. So hydrogen gives us a way to power ships and harbor craft and container movement and of course big trucks and so forth, and get them electrified. So we're very engaged in that whole renewable energy sector from the ocean. And then the last area that we focus on is blue technologies. So underwater robotics and drones and sensors and mapping devices so that we can understand our planet better. We're honored that Ocean Exploration Trust and Bob Ballard, famous ocean explorer who found the Titanic, amongst other things, keeps his vessel here at AltaSea when it's in port, and builds his robots and underwater drones and other technology right here. And it has even taught high school kids how to do the same thing, and they've learned from each other. So that's been a really exciting experience. So we focus on the blue economy on that way. And as I said, we start with research. So we have great universities here that are researching these things, where we already have a big kelp lab that's operated by Dr. Sergey Nushtin from University of Southern California and others. We have a number of other researchers that are here or will be taking space once we finish our renovations. And that then not only are advancing science and our understanding of the ocean and those particular opportunities I mentioned, but having different businesses spin out from that research that can then locate right here at AltaSea, many of which have been nurtured by Anne and Braid Theory. We're very excited to have Braid Theory as one of our partners right here at AltaSea to help nurture those young businesses and help them get their products to market. And then use much of our space for things like EcoWave that you'll hear about in a moment, where companies that maybe are already sophisticated and successful don't need business help necessarily, but need access to markets, especially like California with its goals for cleaner energy in the very near future. So we can be that place for the research, for the business development, and then the workforce training. And that's extremely important because these are very fast growing industries. And young people need to know what these job opportunities are, especially in underserved communities immediately around the port and so forth. So we invite everybody to come down and see AltaSea. As I mentioned, you're going to need to wear a hard hat pretty soon because we've already started renovations with our roof, our solar going on. In a couple of months, so there'll be a lot more hammering and sawing going on here as we renovate these amazing 100-year-old historic buildings into this modern blue technology, economy, education, and workforce development center. So I'll leave it at that and perhaps get into more with Q&A.
Okay, and as I was listening to you speak, Terry, and you're talking, sort of kicking off or ticking off the number of stakeholders that are involved in AltaSea, right? From youth, the students that are engaged in, you're looking, with a basis of STEM and STEAM and moving forward to how it actually practically can find solutions from the ocean, to the research going on, how the research then spins out opportunities for commercialization, which is the kind of role that Braid Theory is playing. Some of the very strategic initiatives, like what we'll be hearing with EcoWave Power, and how that all ties into a bigger vision around hydrogen, the workforce development, government and ports. That is exactly the ecosystem of stakeholders that's here in Lisbon, right? Because it takes all those layers to actually affect change, all those different stakeholders. You're not looking at everything to come from science to be the answer, or technology to be some nebulous solution where everything it is. It's all these different pieces. And it was just striking to me. I'm like thinking through the panels and the people that have been involved in this massive event here in Portugal. And what we have at AltaSea is really a microcosm of that. And so what I'd like to do at this point is transition the conversation to some very specific activities that are going on at AltaSea, also as part of this Build Back Better initiative, but more broadly, just kind of showcasing the different aspects of what the technology, what this infrastructure, what this opportunity means. So I'm going to turn it over to Ina Braverman from EcoWave Power to just kick it off, because the project is so exciting.
Thank you very much. And we're very, first of all, before I share the presentation, Terry, thank you for the little introduction. And we're super excited to be at AltaSea in the Port of LA. Actually, we just received news that the conversion unit, the wave energy conversion unit, is going to be sent on the container to Los Angeles in next week. We finally got a spot on the boat, because with COVID it was like a bit hard to get shipment spaces, so we got the space I think on the 8th of July. So now it's going to be coming straight to AltaSea, and we're super excited about it. But let me share my presentation so we can get excited together. So basically I'll present a little bit in general about wave energy. and then specifically about the project that we're doing at AltaSea at the Port of LA. So first of all, why wave energy is such a great source. Nearly 2.4 billion people, which are about 40% of the world population, are living within 100 kilometers of a coastline. If we're looking at 200 kilometers, it becomes more than half of the world's population. So with this type of population distribution, the need for wave energy is undeniable. People can get electricity to their homes directly from the waves to their homes. Wave energy has 832 times the kinetic energy of air, of wind, meaning we can produce much larger electricity amounts with much smaller, thus cheaper devices. In suitable locations, it can operate 24/7, day and night, as opposed to solar energy, for example, which is an amazing source. And I know that AltaSea is also doing solar on its rooftop to be 100% environmentally friendly. But solar, of course, has the night and cloud coverage and winter when it cannot operate, and wave energy can operate around the clock. According to the World Energy Council, wave energy can produce twice the amount of electricity that the world produces now. And in the United States alone, 66% of all the United States energy needs can come from wave energy. So really, if President Biden is serious about the 2050 net zero carbon or zero carbon emissions, we definitely need to incorporate wave energy together with wind, with solar, and with all the other amazing sources. So if wave energy is so great, why didn't it commercialize so far? So the answer kinds of lies in the photo that you see before you. This is not eco wave power. This is kind of a previous generation of a wave energy product called Pelamis. 99% of the competitors and developers in the wave energy field has decided to go into the offshore, meaning putting like this bulky huge floater. Inside the floaters there's the generator and all the conversion mechanism, and this is like 4 or 5 kilometers into the sea. It created a lot of problems for the wave energy industry. It was too expensive, it needed ships and divers and underwater mooring and cables. It would break down very often. The Pelamis power station broke down after 3 days of operation on the coastline of Portugal, because simply in the offshore you can get waves of 20 meters, which are extremely high, which no man-made equipment can survive the loads of such wave heights. Insurance companies saw that it's so expensive and it's breaking down all the time. They refused to insure wave energy. And environmentalists, which were supposed to be the greatest supporters and proponents of wave energy, were actually objecting offshore wave energy because it created a new presence on the ocean floor which disturbed the marine environment. And these companies, they got so preoccupied with trying to survive, not break down and lower their costs, that most of them didn't even get the chance to connect to the electrical grid. So on top of everything, there became a big question mark on whether wave energy can even safely connect to the electrical grid. Now, what we see in the screen before us now, this is eco wave power. As you can see, a completely different concept. This is the power station that is coming to AltaSea, actually. So the only thing in the water belongs to the water are the floaters. The rest of the system, all the expensive generators, conversion mechanism, hydraulic parts, automation is located on land, just like a regular power station. That enables basically a simple but smart technology for clean energy generation. So how does the technology work? Basically, our floaters attach to existing man-made structures such as piers, breakwaters, jetties, and other types of structures. The floater is going up and down with the movement of the waves, pushing the hydro cylinder, which transmits biodegradable fluid into land-located accumulators. A pressure is being built. The stronger the waves, the stronger the pressure, which is used to turn the hydromotor, turning the generator, and sending clean electricity to the grid via an inverter. So the advantages of the technology is, first of all, that it's 100% environmentally friendly. We don't connect to the ocean floor, we just connect to existent man-made structures, such as the breakwater in the Port of LA, or such as the structures in the premises of AltaSea in the Port of LA. These structures, they basically not the most friendly for the environment. Cement in the water, of course, is not the friendliest. But we have to build these breakwaters. The ports have to build these breakwaters in order to protect the port's activity and protect the coastal populations from the storm. So we take something that is not prime real estate and it's just there for breaking the waves, and we turn it to a clean energy source. It's also cost efficient. In commercial scale, we're the same price as onshore wind, which is a huge progress for the wave energy industry. We're reliable, as we can see in the video below. When the waves are too high for the system to handle, the floaters automatically rise above the water level and they stay in the upward position until the storm passes. And only when the storm passes, they go back into the water and commence operation. And because of the cost-effective price and the reliability of the system, we're also 100% insurable and have been connected to the grid in Gibraltar since 2016, proving that wave energy can safely connect to the national electrical grid. So the company currently holds 17 patents and patents pending, including patents in the European Union, in the United States, Israel, and an international PCT. 11 patents are already approved. So here we can see actually our project execution plan, our future plans. We can see here a photo of Terry and myself during the very emotional and exciting signing ceremony that we had at AltaSea premises in the Port of LA in January this year, which was the day before our bell ringing ceremony on NASDAQ. So we hope to get our conversion unit to the Port of LA in the upcoming 1 to 2 months, depending how long the shipment will take. It will be coming with 1 floater unit from Gibraltar, and 7 additional units will be built in LA, because we want to show that wave energy, exactly like solar and wind, will create significant workplaces in the LA region, which is one of the main goals of the Build Back Better program. In addition, in the next 1 to 2 months, we're opening our first grid-connected power station in Israel. It's the first time in the history of Israel that wave energy will officially connect to the electrical grid. The construction is already finished, and we're just waiting for the bureaucracy, for the electrical company to come and plug it into the electrical grid. I know that Terry will be visiting Israel in September, and we're very happy to host him in our power station. And our next step is that basically building our first commercial scale installations. Right now we have concession agreement signed with Portugal, with the APDL, which is in Porto in Portugal. This is an illustration of the project that you can see here on the screen. And also in April we signed an agreement with Adriano Port in Palma de Mallorca in Spain for a 2 megawatt project. So currently the company holds projects pipeline all over the world of 327.7 megawatts in different locations, including Asia, Oceania, South America, North America, Europe, and the United States. The United States is a very, very interesting and an area of focus for us because of the ambitious goals of President Biden to go to net zero emissions by the year 2050. Also, that's the reason why we're kind of penetrating the US in 2 different paths. One is implementation of the technology at AltaSea in the Port of LA. The second one is actually through legislation. Today, actually for the first time in the history of the United States, there will be a legislative bill that will be published in New Jersey to include wave energy as part of Governor Murphy's energy master plan. So right now there's only solar and wind. Right now waves will be included. Hopefully that other states in the United States will do the same. We legislate and enable the commercialization of wave energy. So why eco-wave power is a winning combination? First of all, most of the companies right now in our field are still in very early R&D stages. Eco-wave power already accumulated 327 megawatts of projects in our pipeline. We have significant operational experience. We operated a grid-connected power station in Gibraltar. We're going to be operating soon the second and the third one in Israel and in the Port of LA. We have a significant support from the research community. According to the IRENA, which is the International Renewable Energy Agency, point absorber, which is the type of our technology, will dominate the market in the future. And we have strong strategic partnerships such as with EDF, Renewables IL, a subsidiary of Électricité de France, the French national electrical company, which is co-investing with the project, with us in the project in Israel, and of course with AltaSea in the Port of Los Angeles. And I would like to finish by saying that although I'm not objective, I'm a big supporter of wave energy. I really think that what AltaSea is doing is extremely inspiring, because really combining solar and wave and hydrogen and all these different sources in one place, it's very visionary, and this is what the world should be doing. Because if we really want to have a 100% environmentally friendly world, the only solution is combining all energy sources. And that's one of the reasons that one of our latest patents that we can see on the small picture here on the side is basically adding solar panels on top of our floaters, because that's basically a space that we don't use for anything. We don't have any conversion mechanism in our floaters, so that's a good place for us. And our company is recognized by the United Nations. We received the Global Climate Action Award. We also an efficient solution by the Solar Impulse Foundation, which are also present in the UN Ocean Conference, and we're part of the Sustainable Markets Initiative of Prince Charles and the World Economic Forum. And that's it. Thank you very much.
So every time I hear your presentation, it's incredibly inspiring. When I tell the audience when you formed the company, how long has EcoWave Power been in existence?
It has been existing since 2011, so about 10 and a half years.
So to make this significant, again, sometimes when we listen to a presentation and we think, oh, this is amazing, it's wonderful, but when you put it against measurements of time and what has been able to be achieved at this point, especially for just the challenges around the ocean, has just been spectacular. I think it also bodes well for AltaSea too, that EcoWave Power has chosen AltaSea as a partner because of just the vision of AltaSea and how we're moving forward. I think it's also significant to note that oftentimes initiatives like AltaSea are looking so around local and regional development, but ocean solutions require international footprint, international cooperation, international partnerships and stakeholders. And I think EcoWave Power is a perfect demonstration of the opportunities moving forward with innovators within and with the AltaSea project. So thank you, and we'll get more on the discussion. What I'd like to do now, Gail Woodward from NASA JPL. I understand you're having technical difficulties, so we won't see you. But transitioning to some of the efforts that you're working on as part of this Build Back Better challenge, but also more broadly, some of the initiatives that your work is, with JPL. Would love to hear from you now.
Hi, Anne. Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you fine.
Yes, we did have some technical difficulties, like Terry and Jacob Scott came to the rescue, and I was finally able to get on and join the meeting. So yeah, you should be able to see my slides. So let me try sharing my slides first, and then we'll get started.
I'm not seeing the share screen yet.
Okay, I'm looking. Give me a minute. Okay.
So while you're getting started, there was a question in the audience about your recordings being made. Yes, this session is being recorded and it is being shown via Facebook Live, I'm told. So that will be available for folks who are not able to join in person, and certainly just follow AltaSea on Facebook, and we'll be able to make sure that you have access to the recording. I'd also, there's some very specific questions about some of the technology that Terry mentioned about use of algae for cattle feed, and some specifics about the EcoWave Power system. What I'd like to invite is some of the panelists if they'd like to answer in the chat. But at this point, let's keep this conversation more broadly. This is a major project, an initiative and a collaborative initiative. So I'm not ignoring you on the questions. Keep them coming, and we'll try to have them answered along the way. Gail, how are you doing on the sharing? If not, I'd love to have you just give a bit of an overview without this. Oh, here we go.
Did it pop up? Okay, it finally popped up. Thank you.
Well, sometimes there's a bit of a delay. If you'd like to do the full screen and go into the presenter mode, or feel free to do it. There we go. All's good. And I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you so much. And thank you for the introduction. I'm Gail Woodward. I'm a robotics technologist at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, working in the Maritime and Multi-Agent Autonomy group. in the autonomous system divisions. And I'm here today to talk about the JPL collaboration related to the sustainable goods movement ecosystem. And I'll just get started with that. Hopefully this will go through. Okay, good. As some of you may or may not know, Jet Propulsion Laboratory is a federally funded research and development center owned by NASA, and we are managed by the Caltech University. There's a picture there of our campus in the foothills of Pasadena, and yes, we do get snow in Southern California at times, as you see our snow-capped mountains. We have about 6,000 employees at JPL, and 139 buildings, but we also have a lot of space dedicated for laboratories where we do a lot of our research and technology development, as well as our developing our end-to-end capabilities for NASA missions and supporting those missions and spacecraft that we have to monitor on a day-to-day basis. So as I mentioned, our mission for NASA is robotic space exploration. You know, JPL started back in 1936 with Caltech students that were testing rockets. And, you know, fast forward to having many spacecraft and instrumentation exploring Mars, the solar system, Earth as, of course, astrophysics missions, interplanetary network, and exoplanets. And here is just a, let me see if I can advance this. This is just a snapshot of some of our spacecraft and instruments across the solar system. You will see down here our latest Mars rover that was launched in 2020, along with our Mars helicopter, first flight on a planetary system of Mars. So we're all very excited about that, and we also have quite an array of Earth satellites. And the importance of Earth satellites is it provides us with remote sensing to help advance our science and our understanding of the Earth and its climate and its processes. And you can see that we have these global satellites, but in addition to that, we also have regional airborne systems that carry instrumentation to take further measurements. And in addition to that, we do a lot of what we call in situ sensing. So whether that's on terrain or in caves or underwater systems, these are the data systems that we have to help us understand the processes in Earth. And some of these missions, I'll pick Grace for an example. That is monitoring the Earth's water movement, understanding the changes with underground water and oceans and ice sheets, and things like that. And we also develop advanced technologies for underwater robotics and intelligent sensing systems. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about our partnership and our collaboration with the Port of LA and LAEDC. And essentially what we are doing is leveraging some of our technologies that we have developed for NASA and other agency missions to meet some of the objectives that POLA has. One of the main objectives is improving efficiency, and how can JPL help in that way? Another is reducing environmental impacts by improving the sensing and monitoring. And so I'm going to highlight a couple of the core solutions that we will be collaborating on for the port. And the first is what we're calling the Air Quality Analytic Center. And this is to analyze pollutant emissions. And here is a system where there's been past federal investments that we can leverage. And we want to be able to establish this monitoring system so that we can provide the data that would be needed for a data-driven decision-making process. And I'll go into that a little bit more in the next slide about that framework. The second core solution is zero emission truck intelligent planner assistant. So this is an intelligent planner that we would be developing for the port's zero emission truck pilot program and help provide data for the efficiency analysis. And, JPL develops a lot of intelligent planners for the robots on Mars, as well as other systems we develop that are either in situ or on other planets. And so we have a lot of experience in that area. As I mentioned in a previous slide, we have quite an array of remote sensing spacecraft and airborne resources. And all of this data is available to us to use within our Air Quality Analytics Center. And so what we want to do is establish an integrated system for POLA so that we can integrate the satellite data, the airborne data, and in situ data. And this output will help the port understand the environmental impact and changes as they continue with their progression towards the port of the future. And as you can see, the port has some in situ air quality sensors already in place. This would become a client to our framework where we're integrating it in with satellites and other data that we might have from airborne. And essentially this architecture provides us with an analytic platform for air quality and its air quality prediction and analysis. And this data that would be generated would be used to help understand the environmental and health monitoring to support the port's decision-making going forward. And I think the other thing I wanted to mention here is in this development, it would provide a public-facing web interface. So there'd be an interactive visualization and analysis that would be available and report generation for the port and the LA region. The second, let me go on to the second core solution. So the Port of LA has a zero emissions drayage truck pilot program that they are starting. And to help support them with that, we at NASA JPL would be developing an intelligent planner assistant. And this is to help increase the capacity to maintain the trucker and related jobs employments without additional environment and health impacts, to be able to reduce the health impacts and to reduce the trucker wait time. Our planners are optimized for the missions, so whatever route that the trucks need to take, as well as for safety. And of course, it increases, clean energy because these are zero emission trucks. And there's one other thing I did want to mention is our public engagement. So with our collaboration, we will be holding workshops with the public. We also at JPL NASA have a large internship program for summer students that would be brought on to help with these projects. And in summary, pretty much this is just a summary of the collaboration efforts I went over about the air quality monitoring system that would support a new network governance mechanism that LAEDC and POLA are looking to form, and to increase the POLA efficiency with the zero emission trucks and reducing the environmental and health impacts. And that's really all I have to present at this time. I'm happy to take any comments or questions.
So Gail, what we'll do at this point is we'll kind of transition back to the high level a little bit and bring it back into how all these pieces fit together. If you want to go ahead. Okay, great. I'm not sharing the screen. Sorry, Gail, we can't see you on the screen, but we know you're there. So rather than having a very structured questioning, I'm going to tee up a few more general questions, and I'd love to have all of your input on looking back at this 30,000 foot level. Why do these pieces all work together? How do they make sense? Why is it important? Like for example, Gail, like right now I'm thinking about when we have these zero emission goals, these net zero goals and so on, you really can't, a theme that came through loud and clear over and over at many of the presentations this week here in Portugal is that you also have to have accountability, transparency, and clear measurements. And what you're doing is this augmented way of not only helping for the decision-making process, but putting this out there then so the public can see and understand the changes and over time. And so it's better decision-making for the paths moving forward, whether it's truck routing or next infrastructure changes that might take place because of it, or whatever that might be. But it's also providing and continuing on. Mike, is it right that then this continues on and helps augment the type of work and public reporting you've already been doing as part of the Clean Air Action Plan?
It does. It gives more specificity to that and a more detailed approach and more real-time information. So definitely it helps us to round out that transparency that it's really important to us, and in really making good decisions and helping technology providers make better decisions so that those transitions work better for the communities and the meaning the economic communities, that the trucking and cargo handling equipment areas that we're trying to affect very quickly.
And when you're when you're putting in the measuring then with the zero emission truck pilot project, then you're starting at ground zero to actually be able to even understand better than how to roll out going from pilot to a more full-scale zero emission drayage truck. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. It's just a much more detailed data source than we've traditionally had. And we can understand a lot more about the supply chain and where movements are going. That also helps us being able to set up other infrastructure that goes beyond that, whether it's charging or fueling infrastructure, to make sure we are locating that type of connectivity in the right place to make it as convenient as possible as we transition from fossil fuel, fueled operation to a zero emissions operation.
Okay, so one question I did set the stage a little bit for all of you is, I'm always looking at everything and decision making through this entrepreneurial lens, and a question that is always set to the entrepreneurs when you're doing a pitch or you're looking at whether it's for investment or market, is trying to describe like the why us and why now. So looking at this coalition, not only those of us here on the panel, but the 40-ish entities that are part of this Build Back Net initiative. What is this coalition? Why the urgency? Why now? Why are we the right combination of stakeholders to move this forward? And Terry, Stephen, you want to tee that up a little bit, maybe start the conversation?
Sure. Look, I think, first of all, this all starts with the urgency around climate change, that we are so
Can you
quickly
speak up a little bit
Yeah.
louder, Terry? A little bit louder.
Me?
Now that's better.
Can you hear me? Yeah, I'm sorry, we've got a lot of background noise here at the site today, so I'm using the headset. So I was just starting to say, look, this all starts to me with the urgency around climate change. We've run out of time to address these issues and to avoid even more, I hate to even say the worst consequences, because already many people are suffering those around the world, but the worst consequences for our communities. And then secondly, the opportunity, because the ocean economy, the blue economy, I think is to California and the world what the information technology economy was 40 or 50 years ago, when Silicon Valley was, cranking out the Steve Jobs and the Hewletts and the Packards of the world. And so I think it's just a huge economic opportunity, and one that can, if you'll pardon the pun, lift a tide that lifts all boats, where especially some of the underserved communities around our ports and in our region have a chance for new jobs that somewhat piggyback on their old jobs. So, for example, here around the port, we have a lot of former dock workers and fishers and cannery workers and so forth, whose businesses or jobs have gone away for a variety of reasons, but now they can still be working in the blue economy, but just from a different angle and in jobs that will be sustained for a long period of time.
And I'll add to that a little bit if you don't mind, Anne. You know,
Yeah.
Terry's absolutely right. And I think the other thing is that's what we're looking at is we didn't get here overnight. You know, I think a lot of the issues that's we're seeing has been brewing, and I think it just COVID just exacerbated and revealed it like many other regions. And that's why this coalition that came together and included so many different entities. But speaking to your question about entrepreneurship, one of the things that we saw, and this is going to resonate around the world as well, is that the large corporations that's been here have been very helpful in terms of creating jobs. But in Los Angeles in particular, 92% of all LA County companies have less than 20 employees. So in fact, over like 80, 85, 87% of these companies have less than 9 employees. So they're micro enterprises. So the future of our economy is really dependent on startups and small companies, and how do we basically support that, right? And these small companies and these startups are going to be the future large companies, and the job creation opportunity is so huge. And then the other part is also these small companies oftentimes are very open to the equity aspect of things. They're going to be targeting women entrepreneurs and BIPOC community members. So I think it's why this group, why this coalition, is because I think we all share the same values, and we're able to bring various pieces to represent the diversity that's here in Los Angeles. And again, in Los Angeles, I really feel that we represent the rest of the world, because we already have 140 nationalities represented right here, speaking over 224 languages in Los Angeles. So we are really a microcosm that represents the world. What works here can possibly work around the world as well.
And I couldn't agree more. And you know, even, well, just back to your comment about, you know, the small businesses, those that benefit and are affected by what this initiative is, includes things, you know, the trucking industry. So often we think of these things in very large blocks, but when you break it down, that the average trucking company is a very small, sort of a mom and pop organization that is highly affected by changes of technology, and how do you implement, and how do you, you know, transition in a just way? How do you transition your company, your employees? All of these things become just more complex, because it's not some monolith structure that's just unilaterally making changes. It's a coalition of thousands and thousands of companies that will be participating and affected by this initiative beyond this coalition.
And to add, so one more thing that you said is just so key, is that these thousands of companies are in multiple sectors, and that multiplying effect and the technology transfer, what Gail mentioned earlier, I think it has to be highlighted. You know, JPL is working on Mars rover. You know, she was showing the information that's there. These are space technology, but now can be applicable to our cargo movement system to help increase that. These various sectors being able to support each other to all address climate change at the same time, be able to get to the job creation aspect of things as well. I think that's the beauty of where we're at right now. Again, we didn't get here overnight. It's not one thing that happened that got us to this climate change crisis that we're in right now. So in order for us to solve it, we have to all kind of bring our resources together to solve it together. And that's why, you know, this EDA Build Back Better, this coalition that we brought together, can't be more proud. And as we're, you know, Terry and I were in DC kind of representing this region, I think we were very, very happy to be able to share this message to the rest of the nation as well.
Yeah, just to add to that, timing is critical, obviously, for all the reasons that have been put together, but organizing is also critical. This has allowed us all to come together in areas, like Stephen mentioned, that wouldn't have naturally come together. So we're all working towards the same place and have been working towards the same place for a long time. But this process and the leadership from the federal government to allow us to get into this process, to motivate us to get into this process, create structure for the region as well, to move not towards this grant application, towards these projects, but to continue to move these initiatives forward, because this is going to be a long-standing process. This transition that we're going through on the green side is a major transition. We're not just going from cleaning up the current diesel fleets that we have today. We're going to eradicate the diesel fleets we have today and create a whole new fuel system going into the future. And that requires a lot of organization, a lot of commitment to this long-term passes. And I think all of us, because of this process, have become committed to continuing the process past these projects and continue to be able to proliferate this next step towards, new generation of fuels.
And you really bring up a good point. I mean, a number of you already. This is a point in time where we're talking about this very specific initiative, but it is part of a continuum. So it's not a start or stop based on this one grant proposal. This is a train that is already moving. This is continuum of a lot of efforts that has started way before this grant opportunity even existed. What I see so much is this why now to me is the Build Back Better funding is really providing that explosive fuel that can bring everything together and meet the urgency that needs to happen right now to address the climate crisis. And and Ina, with what you're doing, you have opportunities all around the world. Why AltaSea? Why did you choose the strength and this program?
So first of all, like on a global scale, I would say that, as I said, the United States as a whole country is very interesting for us because according to the Energy Information Administration, wave energy can provide 66% of all the United States energy needs. So the market itself is very interesting for us. What I found extremely inspirational in AltaSea and the work that Terry is doing and this submission of the Build Back Better program that is led by LADEC. Is the fact that really they incorporated so many minds together. There's scientific minds, there's commercial companies, there's different technology, there's wave energy, there's hydrogen, there's solar power that is being implemented. Like they're really they're creating like their own like perfect zone, because if the whole world would operate the same way that AltaSea operates, it will be a much better place to live in. Because basically in two different areas. So the first area is the fact that really they're expected to have, from what I understand, is what is called the negative emissions, meaning they're going to produce more electricity than what they actually use, which is amazing. Like we want to be in the same position in every place in the world, that every city or country produces less emissions than the clean energy or the clean sources that it produces. Second of all, really providing space for so many different technologies, so much innovation, like being able to combine, like it's not that easy to combine such a large amount of like different, interest groups to work together. It's kind of an utopia, I would call it, in a way. So I think that really that's where the world aspires to be, and maybe what Stereo and AltaSea, they're doing it like, it's a very big and ambitious project, but they're doing it kind of on a small scale for now because everything is pilots and proof of concepts and so on. But I truly believe that other cities and other states, even outside of California and outside of the region of LA, will kind of want to do the same thing. It's very inspirational, it's very innovative, and really, again, that's the best way to get the world to be 100% environmentally friendly, is getting everybody to work together, share the information, and work in transparency.
And that's, well, you said it more eloquently than I perhaps would, but that totally is at the core of why Great Theory is involved in here in this, right? There are so many options for technology to support entrepreneurship in so many different ways, but the variety of entrepreneurs we get to work with in the blue economy, that access, to the ocean, to deep ocean, to coastal, to port operations, and being able to participate in pilot projects, the aquaculture research side, so many of these activities all within one campus, within one initiative, is we can start to see at Braid Theory the strategic benefit on how the individual entrepreneurs that play in this area, it really becomes greater than the sum of the parts, right? So they can really participate in something that will elevate and accelerate the work they are doing, because there's a built-in opportunity to participate in this future. So, you know, so is it all rosy, right? One of the things that we think about, and always, of course, is where are we still seeing the gaps? What are the barriers that we really think are going to be facing through this initiative? You know, if anyone would like to start, like, or aside from the pending funding, but in a more strategic way. Terry?
Yeah, I'll start. I mean, I think there's a few things. I mean, there's a lot we all have to work on, but one thing is indeed building these collaboratives because, for example, we're working on green hydrogen, as we've talked about, and how that can apply to the goods movement ecosystem. But, you know, it takes a lot of investment and a lot of time to get green production done and available hydrogen in the area, to have the distribution network set up, whether that's pipelines, trucks, whatever other methods, even bringing it from overseas, whatever. And then, of course, the end uses, which takes a big commitment from original equipment manufacturers and places like the port and terminal operators to buy that kind of equipment and deploy it. And so it's very easy to get that wrong in the wrong order, where you might have way too much supply, no distribution, and then a lot of stranded trucks at the port, or you might have you know, plenty of supply and distribution, but not enough ships, trucks, and other users at the other end. Not to mention how green hydrogen might benefit stationary electricity production and so on. So I think every one of these things, when you're talking about something that's still relatively new and emerging, as the blue economy overall is, that it's important to have these collaboratives where people work together. And then the other piece of that, which is very related, is the government. Where's the government in all this? Not just with funding, but permitting. You know, I really appreciate EcoWave coming to California. And one of the things that we hope to help them with is to be banging on that regulatory door, not to give up any concerns about the environment or about the Tidelands Trust or the other things we all have to work on, but not to make sure that it doesn't take 15 years or 10 years or 5 years to be able to deploy proven solutions like this. And the same thing with things like aquaculture, where we're having a struggle in places all over the world. There's offshore aquaculture going on. We understand concerns about, you know, finfish, where maybe there's fish waste and stuff being dumped into the ocean that filters down and harms the environment. But there's a lot of other technologies with respect to offshore aquaculture that could more easily be permitted, and we can't let one be the enemy of the other. We've got to get the government working more seamlessly in understanding these technologies and then facilitating their deployment.
And, you know, that's tends to be, you know, always there's this gap when you mention whether it's wave energy or aquaculture. Early generations didn't have the same, you know, they might have had much stronger environmental issues, and policymakers are not necessarily caught up on how the advancement of the technology and the solutions that have mitigated many of the environmental issues that were associated with early versions. You brought that up quite clearly in your presentation, Nina. So, you know, I think that's another point. Would anyone else like to speak to?
Yeah, if I can add maybe to what Terry said, I definitely agree that, you know, the government needs to get more involved of each specific state, I guess, and also on the federal level, it needs to get involved more in policy making, in legislation and regulations, in licensing paths. and creating the supportive frameworks, legal frameworks that are necessary to implement innovative technologies. Again, not only energy technologies, but like Terry said, also agriculture and aquaculture and everything that AltaSea is trying to do. Because look, right now there's a funny situation that to actually like build a pilot station for wave energy, it takes less like 6 months in total, but to actually get a state to legislate for it can take years. So really that does not enable a commercial rollout for different innovative technologies. So what I would really like to see, and again, what I think is really good in what AltaSea is doing is maybe like you said, and that a lot of governments didn't hear about the progress in wave energy or a certain type of aquaculture or a certain type of innovative blue energy technology, and because they didn't hear about it and didn't hear about the progress in it, they kind of chose not to legislate at this time. They thought it's not yet like popular enough, known enough, ready enough, or something like that. And with Terry really giving spaces for this technology to show, hey guys, you know, it works, you can come see it with your eyes, look at this technology and this technology and look at the actual results. I think that can really serve as catalysator for governments to actually go and legislate and actually get excited from it. And already, like as I said, in January when we announced that we're putting our pilot in the Port of LA in AltaSea's premises, we also got contacted by Robert Karabinchak, which is an assemblyman from New Jersey, which is a completely, of course, different region, different state, but already, like, look, few months later, today they submitted the first legislation bill to include wave energy in Governor Murphy's bill for energy master plan for New Jersey. So I really hope that the same will happen in the region of California. I really hope some states will do the same. And I really think that at this point we're kind of talking about everything a little bit theoretically, but I do believe when everything, like when the renovation finishes and all these exciting technologies really like start operating and people get the chance to visit them and really see the impact, like I think the impact will be immense. It's something that is beyond imagination to see like one location that has so many different blue technologies in it.
And what we, you know, that just brought up another point, you know, like when we see in technology development and adoption, and there was a couple of questions in the chat that I will just kind of weave in a little bit to illustrate is, you know, technology adoption doesn't happen linearly. So there's this point where there's pilots and there's small scale work and you're testing and you're doing it works. But then once you have this momentum and you have the proven technology and you see it and it's working, the scaling can actually happen quite exponentially, you know, quickly. And so when I look at some of the questions about transition from pilots to how do you go full scale, is this enough? I just wanted to ask a little bit more questions on timeline. As we move forward with this coalition and these initiatives that are already coming independently of the Build Back Better, but will be heavily fueled by, where are we going to start seeing some of the earliest successes that prove out that this path is right? What are some of the timelines, or where do we start seeing that vision realized?
Well, I'll start with this. I'm sure everybody's got some thoughts there, but one indicator to me that it's a train that's already left the station. We were in Watts the other night at an organization meeting hosted by the Entrepreneur Education Center, which is one of our partners, and it's a community that has been very underserved over the years and has just tremendous potential, where people are looking for jobs, opportunities, ways to create new businesses. And we've got a lot of people that are looking to understand what these jobs are, but also to start businesses. And folks, you know, frankly, Anne, that we're going to send your way very shortly to help start their businesses. They've got great ideas for how to do this in both the blue and the green economy. And so to me, that's kind of a leading indicator when you have people that are signing up for whether it's our Career Pathways program, which we're working on with our community colleges, where students in high school take a couple years of STEM classes and then they do 2 years in a community college, which leads to a certificate in aquaculture management, or one that we're working on for underwater robotics. And when you see number of people trying to sign up for those programs, and then you see things like we saw in Watts the other night with people trying to understand these blue economy opportunities and get into it, or even right now what's going on behind me. If you can hear the hammering and sawing, it's a job training program for people working on docks, and all of that is going to be necessary in the future. And to me, again, like I said, that's a leading indicator that people are even ahead of us, and they're going to be demanding these opportunities.
Mike, would you like to weigh in on that?
No, just beyond, I don't have much to add, but, was already provided. I think that the port has taken this about as far as we can in regards to outreach to our local communities. We've created our own nonprofits over the years, from the Boys and Girls Club to our EXP curriculum that brings kids starting in high school into the goods movement business, but really being able to take this to the next step. That's why the partnership with AltaSea is so critical in being able to provide this umbrella over all the nonprofits that we work with and all the other organizations, including our very focused teaching aquarium that we have here at the Port of Los Angeles, to be able to be the bridge and the economic advisor to the local communities and bringing them in a very, very energetic basis right here in the community. And so that's why we think it's critical for us to have this ability to leverage AltaSea to help with coordination of our existing nonprofits, but also to be able to really take it to the next step in the ocean industries and do things that we have done on the goods movement side, but take it to a whole new area of potential opportunities for the ocean. So that's about all I have to add.
Yeah, and I was also thinking, again, on just timeline for all sorts of all the pieces of this this program, this proposal, this initiative, and again regarding this continuum, this the zero emission drayage truck pilot project. While that starts as a pilot project, the port, as it's transitioned to cleaner trucks already once, and this being a pilot project through, again, these are continuums of projects that have already had predecessors of success. And so sometimes when we look at it, we go, oh yeah, but that's a pilot project for trucks. When is it going to be a full conversion to a full electric drayage truck fleet? Yes, it will take time, but there has been a clean truck transition already once, a fleet transition. So again, as I think about how we move forward. Yeah.
Sorry, and you're absolutely right about that. I want to add that the reason why the Port of Los Angeles, Port of Long Beach, through their Clean Air Action Plan that Mike was referring to, back in I think 2007 is when the first iteration came out. And why we're here today is because those plans that happened, over a decade ago. This is not happening around the world. I think the Port of LA, Port of Long Beach have taken the initiative, and that's why this current EDA Build Back Better allows us to set ourselves up for the future as well. So I think Terry's absolutely right. It's already, kind of the train has left the station. We're already moving forward in many, many different ways. So the important thing is the alignment. And how do you make sure that you can basically bring some of these various individual projects into making sure that we can share the resources and leverage each other and maximize the resources? And I think that's the beauty of this project about, I think Ina was mentioning the beauty of bringing the coalition together, all these different projects, right? That's what I think, I'm personally very proud to see the diversity that's here. Between sectors and between large companies, small companies, nonprofits, education institutions, government. But we're in a very unique time right now where we can align local initiatives, like what the Port of Los Angeles individuals have been doing for a long time with the Port of Long Beach, to basically multiply that with the City of Los Angeles, City of Long Beach, and then also the 88 cities that's in the LA County. Combine that with the state's initiative right now through the California Community Economic Resiliency Fund Project. tying in with the federal government. So how do we make sure that this is not just basically going to be a one-off thing where later on it's kind of all over the place, but really united so one feeds into another? If we can do it right, that's going to be a long sustaining impact to not only, again, our region and our local community, but to the entire nation.
And you made a huge point. I mean, it's in the title of this presentation about leveraging. And Gail, you're off screen, but I wanted to make sure that you brought in a comment about, NASA and JPL's role of thinking about leveraging what has been developed for the space industry to now be, again, it's about a leveraging of resources. And would you just like to weigh in about why JPL is excited about this project?
Hi, thank you. Yes, we're very excited about this because a large portion of JPL's work is in earth science, and we have many scientists studying the earth and its processes and the oceans and the glaciers and the ice melt. I've worked on projects developing autonomous underwater systems for being able to monitor things and get to regions that we can't reach with conventional methods under the ice. And so there's a lot of different areas in which we develop technology, whether it's for NASA missions or under research, maybe for other agencies. And, we want to be able to be part of the solution and the goals that AltaSea and that the port is looking forward to in terms of the future of the ports. And by leveraging past investments and adapting those technologies to apply to these situations and providing solutions allows, the benefit of our home planet. And that's something that NASA has done for many, many years. Technologies that have been developed over the years have been evolved into helping things here on Earth in all different ways. And the other thing is that with our participation under this, we can also do outreach. So as I had mentioned, we have a very large internship at JPL under many different programs, but we have specific ones that meets the needs of this program's needs. And what does that really mean? Well, if we hold workshops regarding these technologies that we're developing, number one, that engages the community businesses, because we want to help create the jobs, because once these systems are in place, then they need to be maintained, they need to be operated, and they're going to be cloud-based systems, so that creates jobs for some of these businesses to carry on with the operations and possibly extensions of these systems, adding new capabilities. And what feeds into that is our internship program. So the students that come in from internship and work on these projects, that maybe in the future, they will be able to extend the capabilities and further add additional benefits.
So, again, it's setting up what we're doing now for really thinking, not only being inclusive of the workforce as it stands today, but sort of building in that growth of the workforce of the future, of bringing through the internships for students. What I'd like to do as we're coming close, first of all, for all of those of you that have put in questions and comments in this chat, I've been monitoring them, and some of them go very specific. What I would like to do is have AltaSea put in the chat an email that would work best for us to funnel some of these questions and capture it through, so that there can be, because some of them got quite specific about working with the California Energy Commission or details about algae. And I'd like to be respectful that this global audience, part of this role is to think about how, how does this translate globally? So what I would like to take these last minutes, not to ignore the questions, but I'll just see if you can put in the chat the right email that these questions can go to. and then can be funneled through to the individual panelists. We'll leave that. And then I'd like to just sort of end with a question to ask each of you, is to think about how, you know, if we're getting this right, not only what does this future look like here, but what is what we're doing translate globally? You know, how does this actually affect others around the world, to provide a model, or, you know, just thinking more expansively of the future and what the impact and opportunity that this affords beyond LA.
I think from the port's perspective, it definitely translates globally, and we have a global reach, and this is a global model for what we think ports can be, which means that we can continue to grow the core business of moving cargo, but doing it in an environmentally responsible way that's getting carbon out of the air, stopping that part of climate change, and that is also providing these economic opportunities to our directly affected communities that are in and around the ports that have been adversely affected by the sprawl of goods movement and those emissions and the economic detriment that has occurred over time. So by making sure that that is a model that is utilized, if we're successful here, and we will be successful because we have been in cleaning the air and cleaning the water already, and we're going to take it to the next level here by creating new industries in both the green and blue side, and really being more for our local communities than we have been for most of our existence. I think that's really critical from the port's perspective and how we can make this the model globally.
I think the world has been looking to Los Angeles, especially Port of Los Angeles, Port of Long Beach, for a long time. In my other role with the World Trade Center Los Angeles, we get to interact with a lot of international partners. Over the last 15 years or so, I've already had the privilege of working with a lot of international delegations that come to Los Angeles, and every single time they come here, they're always requesting for more information about the city of Los Angeles, the county of Los Angeles, the Port of Los Angeles, Port of Long Beach, in terms of their environmental programs, in terms of their policies, how they're able to do it, the lessons learned. So I think we've already been able to influence a lot of these decisions. Separately, I just recently, last night, got back from the Select USA Investment Summit that the Biden administration hosted with Secretary Raimondo from Secretary of Commerce. And so about 3,700 investors from around the world were basically coming together to really learn about investment opportunities. So a lot of them have these great, amazing technologies, especially when it comes to sustainable technology, that they can bring to the United States to help us resolve some of this issue, because we're not the only ones dealing with this problem, and we're not the only ones with the solutions. So being able to do that together, utilizing various technologies from around the world to solve for these issues, fantastic. But going back to what we're saying, now we're tying it to the local community and be able to create job opportunities and equitable recovery for our local community. That's the beauty of basically, I think, how we can bring the world together in the local region. So there's a lot more that we can do. And I think a lot of things are going to be happening in the coming years in Los Angeles that will help us connect with the rest of the world even more closely.
Yeah,
Well,
I would only add to that you know, California is the world's 5th largest economy if we were a separate country, and LA is the driver of that with all of our various industries here, and of course 40% of all the containerized goods that come into the entire United States come through our ports complex here, and even more if you add San Diego and Ventura. And so I think that what happens in California, the world pays attention to, and obviously we're the media, one of the media capitals of the world, and certainly a travel destination for people who will see this in action, which is another important thing about what we're doing here at AltaSea, is to have public engagement and show people what we're doing. That'll be an extremely important part of it.
And you know what I've seen here in Portugal, we've seen a number of really amazing technologists and entrepreneurs who have been, you know, in California showcasing. Yi Chow from Sea-Trek is here with some of the work he's doing with energy from the ocean, not wave energy, but temperature differential, phase change. But it's the exchange of ideas within the innovation community here at the conference was more than I was expecting as well. So I fully see there was a lot of interest in what we're doing in California, and we shared. So I think we are going to see more of that exchange in innovation coming into AltaSea from other parts of the world and going out from what's being developed at AltaSea. And I just like to, again, to invite anyone from the conference who is listening live or who is watching this later to really consider this as an opportunity to see what role you might be playing in AltaSea. If you're looking in the innovation side, speak with Terry and his team or myself. When it looks to the exchange of ideas and ports, Mike, we have had some really interesting conversations about a number of pilot projects that are happening through the ASPAM initiative. So a coalition of European ports or Atlantic ports are providing problems lists and opportunities for pilot projects. So I think that's something that we can look and kind of cross populate and look for common challenges and common solutions. So I just want to thank you all for being a part of this, and I'd like to thank everybody who is joined in for this session here. It's getting late in the evening here in Portugal, just lunchtime in Los Angeles. If for those that are listening, please share the Facebook Live. This is recorded, so I'm sure AltaSea will be posting this on the website and a link to how we can look forward. And again, for those that have asked more specific questions, AltaSea will help follow up with some more specificity and some of the answers that went beyond the scope of this presentation. So Terry, you always have some great last words. Why don't you take us home?
Well, first of all, thank you, Anne, for being such a great moderator. And, I maybe would end with what Gandhi said, that the world has enough for everyone's need, but not enough for everyone's greed. And so we all are going to have to learn to live within our means. The planet is telling us something, not just about climate change, but about sustainability. And if we learn from nature, we will survive to do all of these great things together.
So Shakespeare last time, Gandhi this time. Thank you so much. And thank you to everybody who's been in the audience, and obrigada.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.